What is the difference between mindlessness and mindfulness?
Well, by the use of those two terminologies, there is an acknowledgement that there is such a thing as the mind. I mean, we use the terms all the time, I changed my mind, or let's say, the word is used very loosely. And we should just kind of look at what it really is. And I'm going to make reference to my texts that I resort to, the Bhagavad-Gita, for instance.
Okay.
And it's sometimes referred to as the sixth sense. It's sometimes referred to as the center of the senses. The senses meaning the eyes, the nostrils, the mouth, the ears, and then the sense of touch.
Yes.
And we struggle with the mind in most cases. This subtle sense, it's not something that you see, you can perceive with your eyes, but existence is evident by its mere functioning. And what is its function? Its function is to, what we say in Sanskrit, is sankalpa vikalpa, to accept and reject. And because of its tendency to shut off and open up very sporadically and randomly, it means that we can't trust it. Like the Bhagavad Gita explains, that this subtle sense is something that can be your friend or it can be your enemy. So when we talk about mindlessness, it means that your mind is more or less directing you towards stupidity, causing directionlessness. It's fueled by ego. And generally, when we talk about mindlessness, it means you don't have a finger on the future. It's a little more immediate gratification, stimulation that's sudden, spontaneous. It doesn't require planning. So, however, when the mind is a little disciplined through connecting with the intelligence, a good brain substance, then it can become our friend. So I like that expression in the Bhagavad Gita where it is said, it is your mind can be your best friend or it can be your worst enemy.
Wow.
And how to define it, sorry. I would say it's like a vessel, a subtle vessel that stores many impressions, desires, oftentimes of a selfish nature, and also sometimes of a selfless nature. Depends on how you steer it, And so when we talk about mindfulness, it means that the mind has some control, where you're not a slave to the mind, but rather you become a master over the mind. And then it can be an incredible aid or an assistant in our journey through our human spans of life. So to be mindful means to be full of positive thoughts of a divine nature, progressive, long-term benefit, not short-term, which is more in the field of mindlessness, where you act kind of spontaneously out of modes of passion and ignorance, and it's just you're interested in immediate stimuli. And so this is not what we want. We want something that's where there's planning, where it's of long-term benefit. So when we talk about mindfulness, we're talking about tapping into meditation, again, divine thoughts. And that is something that we need to happily impose upon ourselves. It doesn't always come so natural, because if you do everything somewhat natural, it can lead you to forbidden places. Let's put it. Yeah, just something that's becoming a constant practice. And for people who are on a spiritual path, it usually means they have their focus on higher powers, those that are beyond our ability to, to comprehend sometimes. It means when you're becoming mindful that you you enter into another dimension. It's a spiritual component.
Yes. So I've been hearing a lot about the Bhagavad-Gita, and I also studying that last year, in fact. So to my understanding, I know the Bhagavad-Gita is actually a manual for humankind, just like when you buy a new appliance, we have to study a manual in order to know how it works. Would you agree? Bhagavad-Gita is just like that?
Right. The dialogue between the topmost yogi Krishna and his friend, warrior friend Arjuna, is it's about trying to elevate the consciousness. It gives direction. There's encouragement through the dialogue, particularly coming from Krishna, and where Krishna is saying, "Listen, you have to go beyond the mind. You have to go beyond this, silly little rascal that we call the mind." And not pay too much attention to it, but somehow or other it can be, with some training, this subtle sense can be used in our favor, put us on a good track.
Yes, yes.